Everybody, this video is about reflections, in particular graphing reflections. I'm going to need to do 6 examples, so I'm going to try to go relatively fast. So, in this problem, we're reflecting this shape across the y-axis. Now, if you're just reflecting across a horizontal or a vertical line, which the y-axis is, the y-axis, of course, is this up and down line right here. Reflecting a shape is just as simple as counting. So what we're going to do is reflect each point, and then we're going to connect the new points. So all you have to do is count. To go from point I to the y-axis is a distance of 2 squares. So I count 1, 2, and then I count the same distance to the other side because we just need a mirror image of the same distance. So from the y-axis, I count again 1, 2. And this is where the image point, which we call the same letter, capital I, we add an apostrophe, which is read out loud as prime. So this is point I prime. Now let's do the same thing with point H. If I count to the y-axis, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So now count 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where point H prime will be. Now, since point J is on the y-axis, when I form the mirror image, it doesn't move anywhere. And the same thing for point K. So point J and point J prime, which I'm not going to write because it would be cluttered, are the same. Point K and K prime are the same. So I have my 4 image points, and all I have to do is connect them. Now I can't draw very well, but like I said, I need to go fast. I'm not going to use my line drawing tool. So there we go. That's what the new shape looks like. And that's how you reflect across the y-axis. Now, let's do another example. Let's reflect across the x-axis. So this is the same thing. We do have a little wrinkle here because the x-axis is running through our shape. But that does not matter. We use exactly the same strategy. So let's do point D first. If I count from D to the x-axis, that's a distance of 1. I count the same thing to the other side, so I count 1 to the other side. And that's where point D prime will be. Well, what about point E? That's 1, 2, 3, 4 above the x-axis. So now I count 1, 2, 3, 4 below the x-axis. And that's where point E prime will be. Point F is again 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 above. So now I count 4 below. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's point F prime. Let's see. Point G, this is 1 above the x-axis. Count 1. And then count 1 below. So point G prime is 1 below. And now, again, all I have to do is connect the dots. I'm not going to try too hard, but maybe this can look okay. So notice when your line of reflection goes through your initial shape, the 2 shapes that you end up with, the initial and then the image, which is what this red shape is called, the image, they also overlap each other. So the pictures can get a little bit convoluted, which is why using multiple colors can be nice. So that's the x-axis. Let's see another example. So the instructions say reflect across the line y equals -2. Okay, so you do need a fact from your algebra class. Y equals -2 is the equation of a line. In particular, if a line says y equals a number, or if an equation says y equals a number, you know that the graph is going to be of a horizontal line. In this case, it's on the y-axis at -2. So the line y equals -2 is this dotted line. And now I use my same strategy as before. So, since points V and T are on this dotted line, they don't move when I reflect. There's nowhere to count. But point U, well, that's 2 above the line. Count 1, 2. You count the same distance on the other side. 1, 2. So here we have point U prime. Point S That's 2 below the line. So then you count 2 above the line. And here's S prime. If I connect my dots, I'll do it as neatly as I can here. If you connect the dots, that's what you end up with. Not a very good picture, but you see what I mean. It's the same thing. All you have to do is count. Let's do another example. That's pretty simple. But again, this problem involves some prior knowledge from algebra. You do have to know that x equals 1 has a graph that is vertical. So you go to the x-axis at 1, and you draw a vertical line. So our line of reflection is this dotted line. And now you use the same counting technique. So if I go from point H and I count to the line, that's 2 squares, count 2 more. So H prime is right there. Point F, that's 1, 2, 3 to the right. So you count 3 more. 1, 2, 3 to the left. Here we have F prime. Point G, that is 2 to the right. So I count 2 more, and I go 2 to the left. And here's where we have point G prime. So I have to connect these 3 dots to get the reflected triangle. Ooh, that's not very good. Oh, so there's our 2 triangles. So horizontal and vertical lines, to reflect them, or to reflect across horizontal and vertical lines, is nothing more than counting. So the last 2 examples, in these you're going to have to remember something. So without going into too long of an explanation, if you want to reflect across the line y equals x, well, first you have to know what the graph of y equals x looks like. If you think about your Algebra 1 class, you graphed lines that looked like y equals mx plus b. M was the slope, b was the y-intercept. So this is actually a really simple equation. We have y equals 1 times x plus 0. So the y-intercept of this line is 0, and the slope is 1. So if you think rise over run, you go over 1 up 1, over 1 up 1, over 1 up 1, over 1 up 1, and so on. So we're reflecting across this, this line that's at a 45-degree angle going through the origin 0, 0. Now, without going into all the details of exactly why this is true, take my word for it, when you're reflecting across this line, any point, call it xy, will get reflected to the point y comma x. And I think you'll see that why that's true when we start graphing. So let's take point W. Point W is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1. 5 comma negative 1. The point W prime is going to be at negative 1 comma 5. All you do is you interchange x and y. So point W prime is going to be at negative 1 comma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So point W prime will be there. And do this with all 3 points. So let's see. Point V is at 2, negative 2. So when you reflect it, point V prime will be at negative 2, positive 2. All you do is interchange the points. So negative 2, positive 2. Negative 2, positive 2. And that is point V prime. Now point X is at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is at 4, negative 4. So you interchange these. X prime will be at negative 4, positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we have X prime. So if I connect these dots, that's what the reflected shape looks like. Now, you can, if you can visualize it, if you fold across the dotted line, these points will line up. Or if you connect W prime to W, you'll make a 90-degree angle with the line y equals x, and you have the same distance on each side. At the end of the day, though, you need to remember x, y, well, you switch the coordinates. All right, we have one more example to do, and again, this is something that you'll have to have memorized, that you'll have to know. So we have the line y equals negative x. Well, in the same way as we graphed the previous line, imagine there's a plus 0. The y-intercept of this line is 0. The slope is negative 1. So we go over 1, down 1, over 1, down 1, and so on. You can go left and up to form a line. Again, we're at a 45-degree angle going through the origin. So this is a really nice line. It just has negative slope. And one thing that you do have to know about this reflection, again, without going into the details, the point x comma y will get reflected to, you have to do two things. First, you interchange the two numbers. And then you change their sign. Now, be aware, this negative does not mean that the points are always negative. You're multiplying whatever y was by negative 1. So if y was negative, when you multiply it by negative 1, it becomes positive. So the way you interpret this negative sign is, just like I said the first time, you interchange the two numbers, you switch the two numbers, and then you change their sign. So let's do this once more. Let's take point x here. Point x is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5, negative 3. Negative 5, negative 3. Oh, to get to x prime, you interchange the two numbers. So you're going to put negative 3, negative 5. But then you multiply by negative 1. You change their signs. So that's going to change to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So x prime is going to be there. Do this with all 3 points. Once you get good at this, sometimes you can reflect 1 point and then sort of use visualization to draw the rest of the picture. But point W, not W prime, point W is at negative 5, negative 4. So W prime. Switch the two numbers. So negative 4, negative 5. And then change their signs. So that's going to be at 4, 5. There's W prime. And now point Y, which is at negative 4, negative 4. We'll go to point y prime. So interchange the two numbers, which doesn't matter because it's the same number, and then change their signs. So we're going to go to 4, 4. And there's y prime. Connect the dots, and you see the little reflected triangle, which again you can kind of visualize as connecting the 2 points, x and x prime. You'll fold a 90-degree angle with the same distance on each side. So anyway, that's how you do reflections. Horizontal and vertical lines are really easy. Reflecting around y equals x or y equals negative x, you do have those two facts to remember. But anyway, that is how you do it. Hope that helped.